Argentine sovereign debt saga and consequent default, where we've seen lenders pitted against a country with one of the most questionable economic portfolios of recent years. It stems from when Argentina defaulted on a record $95 billion in 2001. But since June, debt has once again become the country's focus, following the ruling of a US judge to pay $1.5 billion to US hedge funds who had bought Argentina's debt at a knockdown price 13 years ago. But the country has failed to pay. Here to speak about what this means for Latin America's third largest economy is Rodrigo Olivares-Caminal, Professor in Banking and Finance Law at Queen Mary University in London. Well, Rodrigo, Argentina is no stranger to debt, and this is the second time it's defaulted in a century. So now the dust has settled somewhat. Where does this leave the country?
It leaves the country where it was almost 10 years ago. Argentina has history of defaulting more or less in cycles of 10 years. It happened in 1982, 1992, December 2001, and then the restructuring was open until 2005, and then we are in 2014, almost 2015, finishing another cycle.
Well, what's the consequences of this particular default?
Still to be seen, because as you know, there has been lots of complications. Basically, Argentina claims that they have made payment to their creditors, which is not accurate. So basically, where leads this? The 30-day grace period expired. Argentina has been given a golden opportunity by the judge entertaining the claim, saying that appointing a special negotiator to settle any differences. Argentina came to the table only 48 hours before the deadline. On top of that, with the same proposal that was already rejected 3 times by the distressed investors. Today, at 11 a.m., New York time, there will be a meeting to determine whether there has been a trigger on the CDS. And the problem is that Argentina is playing with fire. They are claiming that it will be difficult to enforce anything because the bonds need to be accelerated by 25% of the bondholders. But the reality is that you do not know which other debt instruments are out there with cross-default clauses, which basically, when we talk about cross-default, sometimes we confuse between cross-default and cross-acceleration. So there might be some differences there.
How did Argentina get into this situation?
Argentina has been labeled in international fora as a serial defaulter. Basically, there's no reputational cost, and sometimes it's cheaper for Argentina to default rather than to honor its debts. It's a situation which is recurrent, and this put off many investors. Basically, Argentina has been nationalizing companies, defaulting, not engaging in negotiations, incurring into big amounts of debt that then someone else will be in office to face the problem.
So what happens now? What choices does Argentina have?
It's only one: sit on the table and negotiate with the creditors. District court ruling, there's a Court of Appeals ruling, there's even a Supreme Court ruling. Basically, the district court has passed an order whereby nobody can engage in helping Argentina because they will be aiding and abetting. So basically, Argentina has to sit down to the table and negotiate. There's no other way out.
The country is still solvent, so how is this situation likely to impact its economy?
The central bank reserves of Argentina have been decreasing lately. Argentina is not in a very comfortable position. That's why Argentina has been forced to settle with YPF, and also Argentina reached an agreement with the Paris Club, because Argentina was paving the route to come back to the capital markets. Argentina needs to obtain international financing to be able to pay some of their obligations. It's very rich, has many resources, but they need to get access to finance.
Well, since the default, Argentina has called the US mediator incompetent and has actually blamed the United States for its default. Is this fair?
Of course it's unfair. Not only them, basically now they are blaming absolutely the whole universe, and there's a complot against Argentina, there's a conspiracy. Basically, yesterday they were blaming absolutely everyone. They were also blaming Standard & Poor's, Fitch, District Court, 3 judges in the Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court. They're wrong. It's completely wrong. It's only Argentina's fault because they are regularly breaching the rule of law. If you ask me, this is the story of Argentina, and again, if we look backwards, every now and then we have one of these episodes, and of course it's simpler to blame someone else than assume its own responsibilities, mainly at the political level.
Well, looking at vulture funds now, and according to reports, US hedge funds stood to gain 1,600% in profits in just 6 years. Now, the Argentine president, Cristina Fernandez, has called this extortion, but surely they knew what they were getting into.
Definitely, and Jenny, if I may, I would prefer to refer not to vulture funds, but to distressed investors, because basically what they are doing is they are taking a risk. like anyone else. These individuals take a big loss, they assume a huge amount of risk, and you know the basics of finance: higher the risk, higher the return that you will expect. Many people claim that this practice should be prohibited, but basically as long as there's an offer and an acceptance, that's it. You go to an antique market, you buy a cheap painting, then you go to an auction house and discover that it's a Monet, a Van Gogh. Are you going to sell it for the discount price that you bought it, or are you going to wish to get the highest hammer price?
Well, the hedge fund manager, Paul Singer, is very much seen as the villain of this piece, but surely he's just an incredibly shrewd businessman.
Definitely, and to a certain extent, he's pushing the boundaries, and he makes us all who are in distressed investments or in debt issues try to oversee the whole system, how it interplays and where adjustments are needed.
Well, previously I spoke to Jubilee USA, who said that these hedge funds would set a precedent for sovereign debt recovery. What do you make of this?
I don't think that this is an issue, because I personally think that Argentina is a one-off. Argentina is unique in many aspects. The first and foremost, Argentina has been very aggressive from day one. Second, Argentina has not been willing to engage into meaningful discussions. Third, because the reason why we ended up with these rulings from US courts is mainly because Argentina passed a law subordinating some of the creditors. So one group of creditors has been subordinated vis-a-vis the other. And basically this has been the breach of the pari passu clause. What I'm trying to tell you is that in reality, if Argentina would have not subordinated, we would have not been here in the first place.
So how is defaulted sovereign debt dealt with? Because a country can't go bankrupt or be forced to pay, can it?
A sovereign cannot go bankrupt because there are usually two definitions. One, when you cannot meet your obligations when they fall due, and the other one, when the value of your liability exceeds the value of your assets. This second one does not apply to sovereigns. So at the end of the day, if they do not meet their obligations when they fall due, it's because they don't want to. The reality is that sovereign is solvent, they can increase taxes, and eventually, it's not a 21st century concept, but if they want, they can sell a piece of land. After the Brady Plan, there has been few restructurings. Last time, I think that I checked, there were like 37 or 38. All of them have been successful, all of them with a percentage rate of about above 90%, which is a very high percentage for a restructuring where there's no insolvency court or no insolvency law that you can bind and cram down dissenting creditors. So I think it has been very successful. I think that there have been only two litigious episodes, one of them being Argentina.
Rodrigo, thank you.
My pleasure.